Hi, it's Kevin Lebates here. So I realized from my previous video that there are a few more subtleties worth examining in blockchain forks, particularly looking at the 0.7, 0.8 fork. For example, if you submit a transaction to the network that is forked, the question is it going to make it into both forks or not? So if you have a transaction that's only picked up on the 0.7 Bitcoin chain, and that's the one that wins out, everything's fine. If it's only picked up on the 0.8 chain, you can resubmit the transaction on the 0.7 chain, or you can submit a different transaction that spends the same coins on the 0.7 chain that were spent on the 0.8 chain, but to a different destination address, and then you've committed a true double spend. And this actually happened. There was somebody, fortunately for the receiver, it turned out that they were honest. They submitted a transaction on the 0.8 chain, and it got picked up only by 0.8 and not by 0.7, and they then went and spent the same coin on the 0.7 chain to a different address, to their own address in fact, which meant that the 0.8 owner couldn't go to the 0.7 chain and claim it again. And I'm not entirely clear why that transaction was only picked up on one fork and not the other, because I would think that the 0.7 and 0.8 nodes would still be relaying transactions to each other, and therefore it should have been picked up. So that's something I'm going to have to investigate. Was there some other thing going on as well, in that the 0.8 nodes were no longer forwarding transactions onto 0.7 nodes? I don't see why that would be the case, but it could be. You could have a fork where you actually break the, or change the transaction forwarding protocol, and therefore things on one chain would not be getting forwarded to another. In fact, there's a whole different combination of things that you could have with a fork, depending on the software chain being the software change being made. Either transactions are getting forwarded to both, and therefore they should occur on both chains, and therefore it shouldn't matter ultimately which one wins from a receiver's perspective, or they may not be getting forwarded. Or you can even do some clever stuff where you purposely submit two transactions that are spending the same coin to different addresses to two different nodes that are kind of being used by two different miners, mining two different chains, and therefore artificially ensuring that there is a break in the reality on the two chains. A lot of interesting stuff worth looking into there. So that's just a sort of a further discussion on what happens with transactions when a fork happens. And the whole area is really quite interesting, and I'm glad that people pointed out that it was worth looking at a bit more. Bye for now.